and my Rhino is open, my Grasshopper screen is opened as well. So what we are going to do today, as I said, we are going to create our geometry starting from scratch, and this geometry is going to be a bit like different, and it might be an interesting exercise. What we'll be doing, we'll be creating sort of a column. So if you imagine, if we are creating a column, what we do is we come over here, like let's say it's a rectangular basic column, and then we specify the starting point, we specify the length and stuff, and then we put the column in, right? But as I model here, if you remember from the very first tutorials, I just modeled it too fast. I didn't pay attention enough to what I'm doing, like where I locate the column, what is the length, what is the width, what is the height, and all these kind of things. So in order to proceed these kind of things, or in order to create these geometries in Grasshopper, we should be able to divide that process into smaller steps so that we can execute the geometric formation process. So let me delete this column for a second. And what I'm going to do now is redo the whole thing. So when I click on this box button, what it says is first corner of base. So it's asking me a point, right? So if I put this point, and then it's going to be asking about about the width, then the length, and then the height, right? So these are all numeric values that I should put in. That's why we need to be focusing on all the process and all the decisions that we are making in Grasshopper as well. So as you know, what I need to do first is to grab a point, a parametric point. So if I go under the tab of vector, I'll be creating a point which is coming from construct point. So construct point has 3 inputs, and all these inputs are related to the coordinates: x coordinate, y coordinate, and z coordinate. So if I come over here and put 10,000, this point now is going to be in 10,000 or 10 meters 0, 0, because default values of these points are 0. So if I put 0 here, or not, let's put 10,000, 10 meters here, and let's put 10 meters here as well. What I see now is all these points are actually like all the points the coordinates of the point is being shaped by the controls in the slider. So this is what we can say this can be our column space, right? So why don't we group this point and pull out a scribble and then type column base point. And we can add the plane to this as well in the later steps, but let's put plane as well because we see plane a lot in Grasshopper as we generate or as we create geometry. So the next thing is to create the rectangular, in a sense, in base, because what we are trying to do is to create this column, right? But we'll be doing it a bit fancy. So to create the geometry as such, I need to go to curve, and under primitive, all the line creation or polyline or curve creation tools are here, and we can see a lot of different options, such as creating circles, lines, like arcs, rectangles. We are going to go with rectangles, and even in rectangles we can have a rectangle based on a plane. We can create a rectangle by creating in between 2 points or in between 3 points. So let's stick to this one for now. And what this shows is basically 4 inputs, like plane, x size, y size, and radius. The plane is, when we put this component, it automatically generates itself. So what we see here is this green grid is the plane. In your cases, you may see this grid super large or really small. To arrange that or to adjust that, you can go to display. Under preview plane size, you can type 100, for instance. That will make things a lot larger. Or you can say, you can come to display and then say plane size. Oops, I've just changed the point how we see the points. So we take it back to cross. Plane size, let's say 10, and it goes smaller. So that's the thing. And obviously we need to put a plane. Default, it's world XY, but we can put it like, we can put an XY plane here, and we can connect it to here. And then if I right click to this, select this component and right click to the group, and if we say add to group, this component will be added to the group. The next thing that I'll be doing is I'll be defining the size, right? X size. So what is going to be the size of the X and Y, like width and length? So if I hover over to this input, what I see is -1 to 1, -2 to 2, meaning they are ranges rather than numeric values, so that we can create we can put this plane as its corner or as its center. For now, our point is its center, because we are putting the X in between -1 to 1 and -y -2 to 2. So if I put I don't know, like if I put 100 as a value, and if I put another like 150 as another value, let's see what we have. We have now is, if I change this slider, what you see is this point of this rectangle, creation point of this rectangle, is this 0.0.0, because now we are only creating distance, or we are defining the length between 0 and 186. Okay, to avoid this, I need to define my own domain. So if I go to math, I can see construct domain. And this domain, if you want to use this point as our center of our column, I need to also use a negative value, so that I can have, let's say, -50 to 50. Okay, and it's going to be my X value, for instance. Oops. And if I delete this now, I can delete this too. And if I hover over to, so if I copy this and paste it, and this time if I put 75 and I put it into Y, now you see my point is center rather than corner. And last but not least, the radius is how you are creating this rectangle. So if you put, let's say, 50 here, you see that the edges, or sorry, the corners are getting fillet in a sense. It might be useful if you're dealing with like profiles, holes, all these kind of aluminum stuff. So let me also group this guy and maybe paint it into, I don't know, red, and then say column base rectangle. Okay, and the next thing, where we wanted to create the next profile, or the next or the top part of our column. So if I copy and paste this, and if I put my Z value, let's say 300 or 4,000, which means 4 meters, then I see that my point is there. And what I'll be doing is firstly changing this name. By the way, if you double click to the scribble, you can change its name. So you can say column cap, or cap point, or plane. And now let's create an hexagon. To create an hexagon, what I need to do is I need to go to primitive, under polygon, and I create this plane here. And then what I need to do is, it's asking me the radius, the size of my hexagon, let's say 60. Okay. We can increase this, decrease this, that's completely up to us. Number of segments, we can put it 5, we can put it 6. Let's stick with the 6 for now, and we don't need to fill it any connections or corners. So I can say Maybe I can copy this scribble and paste it. Maybe I can group them all. Column, cap, hexagon. And we can delete the rectangle, sorry, point and plane here as well. Okay, and let's also color this or paint this into red. So what we see here is basically two geometries, right? And what we need to do, we can connect these two curves by having surfaces in between. If we use component called loft, we can double click to canvas and type loft, or we can go to the surface tab and under freeform we can grab the loft component. Loft component has two inputs. One of them is the curves, which we usually use, and the other is options. The options might be important time to time, depending on the project or task you are dealing with. You can access the options by right-clicking to options, loft options, and you can see all these things. Or you can go underneath freeform and then grab a loft options, okay? But for now, we are not dealing with that. Since this input has only one slot, to connect, what we need to do is we need to connect this, and we need to connect this one as well. But how we do that? So if you want to connect multiple inputs to one single slot, what you need to do is you need to press shift. If you press shift, you'll see that there is a green arrow at the end of your input, and if you press left mouse button of your mouse and then drag it to the input that you want to connect, you connect that input into, you connect that geometry into the loft or the geometry that you want to create the loft. The loft is not created here because the points that we are trying to, or let me check really quick why it's not being created. Okay, because, oh, sorry. We have done something with the loft options, I think. Yeah, so we didn't commit the changes, that's why it freezed a bit. So if I double click here and then say loft, and then connect this guy and this guy, what I see is, I see my column is created. But obviously it's not that like, it's a bit like tiny right now. What we can do is we can say, okay, let's put it this way, let's put it that way to have some depth to it, but we still, maybe we can put 125 to this, edit, and let's say maximum 1000, but what we want is 125. I mean, we can even extend it further. But the problem with this one is, as you see, it rotates so rapidly or in a sharp way that it gets really thin towards the middle of it. And in order to see that, what we can do is we can say underneath util, we can find the cap hose component. What cap hose component does is basically take the geometries or open B-reps, open 3D surfaces, and try to fill the openings if they are planar. If they are not planar, cap hose would not work. But since our top and bottom is planar, it's gonna work. And let's make this to see. Okay, and this is our iteration number 1 or variation number 1. Let me put it aside. So you see at this portion it's working a bit weird. By the way, we have a complete control on this column right now, so we can make it shorter, we can make it longer, it's completely up to us. But the biggest problem here is it gets, again, like super sharp, and it turns super sharp. So what we need is to define, I think, a stationary profile in between, so that that stationary profile works as a blending station. It blends this rectangle to this hexagon. And that station, in my opinion, could work as a circle. So what I can do here, I can copy this and paste this plane, again, and then this time say column midplane or point. And then instead 400, let's say 150, and let's create a circle that has, I don't know, radius of something like this, maybe even larger, 120. You see, now what I can do is I can say copy this and paste, obviously, create my groups to keep my definitions in an order, column mid station. And you see, I will have now this circle here, but if I'm not careful, if I connect directly, what it does, it basically firstly takes this rectangle to a hexagon and then to this hexagon to circle, but I don't want that, right? And let me disconnect them all. To avoid these kind of messes when you are dealing with one singular slot in an input, what I usually do, I use a component called merge, and this component is quite handy if you're dealing with multiple data. So the first data that I wanted to put in is rectangle, because I want to start with rectangle. The second is the circle, and the third one is the hexagon, right? And what it does, it basically takes all this information and puts it in one single output. And when I connect this, now you see it inflated a lot. The reason that it's inflated, as you can see, this rectangle and this circle are not on the same direction. There might be other tricks to fix this, but I will use this as a chance to talk about some rotations. Okay, so if I use this rectangle in a different order, but let me save this just to show you the differences in between, right? If I want to rotate this, or if I want to put this on the same single or the same kind of, order, we will see that there won't be any inflation or this kind of flattening thing is happening. By the way, let me paint this red as well. So what I need to do now is to first, let's test this. If I move this up, you see it's changing a bit, but then it goes down, and if it increases our limit, it creates this crazy stuff. So I have to be a bit careful. So this is the height of my station. This is the size of my station, and this is my hexagon, and so on and so forth. So what would happen if I change this rectangle or rotate this rectangle? So if I create a component, or if I use a transformation, Euclidean transformation, rotate, what it will does is it will take this geometry, and if you pay attention, it already rotates it because angle and plane is already defined. Plane should be the same plane that we are using, so I can use that here. For the angle, we can use, Grasshopper gets angles as radians, so we need to convert our degrees to radians. So if I want to use 90 degrees, what I need to do, I need to convert 90 to radians, and to do so, or the way to achieve that is to go under math, under trigonometry, you'll get radians. And when you get this, when you put this in, you see that your rectangle now rotates, okay? Obviously between 0 and 100, so you can change that to, I don't know, maybe 360. Why not? Just to show you the, changes. Anyway, so if you stick to the 90 for now, and if I connect this to here, what we immediately see, our column gets smoother, right? So if I bake this as it is onto layer 2 and move, you see now our column, same organization, it's way smoother, okay? And maybe I can group this and paint this into this time. Let's paint this into greenish, and column base rectangle, rotate it, and add this to this group. So this is basically, that's basically pretty much it for today. But what we can do now, we can increase these sizes, we can increase this, decrease this size, we can push this down the column, I don't know, to here. We can push this down, we can change this, increase this, decrease this, or even we can rotate this. Maybe other way to rotate the hexagon is basically rotating the plane. So if I go to plane, and if you check the rotate, plane rotate, or rotate, yeah, rotate plane, and again the angle is going to be, I don't know, it's radians obviously. I grab a radians, and let's say 360, and connect it here. If we use this plane, and let me group this, and let me put it this way, and let's type rotation plane. I mean, you can rotate the plane that hosts the geometry, or you can rotate the geometry itself. It's completely up to you and your choice. So this is my group here. So if I connect this plane over here, now what I'm seeing is things will change when I rotate this plane. You see, I mean, these are all the controls that you can have within this definition. So what we can call this definition is maybe sort of a column generator, or column creation assistant. It's sort of a system that helps you to create your columns, and that's pretty much what I will have for today. And I hope you like these guys here. I hope you like these columns here. And if you like, just hit the like button. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. You can access this working files in the description below. And have a nice weekend.